Martin.
Mick, is it?
Nice to see you.
Very nice
Mick,
to meet you.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Nice
Yeah.
to meet you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks.
Cheers. Thank you.
Come in anyway. Okay. Yes, yeah, come in then.
Thanks a lot.
Martin. That's...
Ada as well?
I think that's not your 1930 something.
That's a great picture.
Yeah.
So do you know anything about how Richard and Ada would have met?
Well, the story from the family is that Grandma was singing on Victoria Pier, and Richard heard her singing, and he was attracted by that, and got talking to her, and that's how it all developed from there.
Back in Hull, he receives a phone call from genealogist Jenny Thomas.
Hello there.
Hello, Martin.
Yes.
I've been having a look again at your dad's side of the family,
Yeah.
and I've managed to track down a living relative of Ada and Richard.
Oh, really?
He's called Nick Myers.
Right.
He is a grandson of Ada and Richard. He's the son of their daughter Mabel.
Really? Okay. Blimey.
And he lives in Hull.
Right, yeah. Thought you might.
So I recommend that you look him up.
Yes.
Try and go and see him, because you never know what he might have about the family.
Thank you very much, Jenny. I'm quite well boned up on Richard now, you know. Just because we haven't heard about her life yet doesn't mean she didn't have one. She had a life, presumably one beyond Richard. She was 20 years younger. I guess she was around on the planet after he was. Hi.
Hello, Martin.
Mick, is it?
Nice to see you.
Very
It's
nice
Mick,
to meet you.
yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Nice
Yeah.
to meet you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks.
Cheers. Thank you.
Come in anyway. Okay. Yes, yeah, come in then.
Thanks a lot.
Martin. That's...
Ada as well?
I think that's not your 1930 something.
That's a great picture.
Yeah.
So do you know anything about how Richard and Ada would have met?
Well, the story from the family is that Grandma was singing on Victoria Pier, and Richard heard her singing, and he was attracted by that, and got talking to her, and that's how it all developed from there.
It was amazing to see that he'd married a much younger blind girl, you know, who was also musical.
Yeah, because she used to busk around the theatres in Hull. There was a Tivoli Theatre,
Yeah.
Little Theatre, which is the new theatre now. She used to go around the queues, busking.
Do you remember your grandparents at all?
I remember Grandma, really.
Yeah.
She potted about in the house, and she could cook, do the washing, all sorts of things. Even being blind. And she could, sew. She used to thread needles, put them in her tongue, and put the thread through like that. How she did it, I don't know. There's another photograph. Now this, Grandma, Ada, she's reading the Braille newspaper. She used to get the Radio Times and a newspaper. She used to get books from the library at Manchester, big Braille books, and she used to read them, all the Daphne du Maurier and Wuthering Heights and things like that, and Charles Dickens. And
did she?
she just read it, it was marvellous.
Yeah. And was she blind from birth?
Well, I think about 3, because she had some eye trouble.
Really?
And her mother put some drops in. This is the story I've heard.
Yeah.
And they didn't, they made sent her blind, actually, so it was a bit of a tragedy.
God, that's horrendous.
Yeah.
Blimey. Do you know when, Grandad Richard died? When did he...
In 1915.
Was it?
Yeah. So he was about 64 or something like that. Because he was 20 years older than Grandma.
Yeah, he was, yeah.
Grandma married a Mr. Ellis in 1923.
Really?
And he was an organist as well, a musician.
Was he?
Yeah.
Was he?
Yeah. And then she married another, Grandad Rhodes, in 1940.
Really?
So she was a wartime bride.
So she was married twice after Richard?
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's amazing, the fact that she's embarking on another life, having already done all the things she's done. Oh, that's fascinating. I know Ada better than I know anyone in this story now, because I've just spoken to Mick. And once you have that human contact, it becomes tangible, and it becomes like a real person, and really, really not very far removed. She looks like quite an amazing woman, really. They packed a lot in, Richard and Ada. and had a lot of awful, dreadful tragedy as far as losing children is concerned. I mean, I'm curious about how they died. I mean, first and foremost, as a human being and as a father, I don't think you could not be moved by children dying at an obscenely young age. I have no idea why they died or how they died. But yeah, of course, I'd be curious to know. I don't anticipate finding out the answer, though.
Martin's back in London to see if he can find out more about what caused the deaths of Ada and Richard's children. He's managed to find some documents to help him in his investigation.
I have death certificates for 4 of their children. I can't really make out the cause of deaths on them. I mean, even if I could, I probably wouldn't quite understand the words themselves. So I'm going to go and speak to somebody who can help me with those. I'm going to speak to a doctor now.
Martin's come to Great Ormond Street Children's Hospital to meet paediatric consultant Dr. Vaz Novelli, to find out why by 1911 6 of Ada and Richard's 12 children had died.
Some certificates here. We've managed to track down 4 of them. These are them, I think, chronological
Right.
order.
The infant mortality rate around that time would be around 15–20%. I would expect 1 in 5 to 1 in 6 children die, not 50%.
yeah.
So that is unusual.
So this is Alice.
This is the first one that died.
This is the first one who died, apparently, yeah.
So that was
1902.
902, and aged 2 months,
yeah.
right? And with the cause of death, inanition and syncope. I mean, inanition is not a term we tend to use today.
No.
It basically means failure to thrive. So that was the first one, and then
That's
you've
the first
got.
one. Then this is Hilda.
She died in 1904.
I don't know what that says.
So that just says premature birth. This is the third
This
one.
here is
isn't it?
Donald Walter.
That's marasmus. That's just the same as inanition in a way. It means lack of, basically, a child who's not thriving, who's losing weight as such. So this is the fourth one.
Well, this is Arthur.
Right. So he was
3 hours.
3 hours. That's
Yeah.
and it's also inanition, and I think putting the 4 together.
Yeah.
Looking at these, I think there's an underlying process which led to these infants not thriving and not being able to suckle properly and not putting weight on and dying in those first couple of months. So then you say, well, what could be the cause of this? Congenital abnormalities, cardiac defects, renal defects. You wouldn't expect 4 in a row or 5 in a row to have that.
No.
Could it be genetic, metabolic? Possibly. You'd expect a 1 in 4 involvement in that situation. This doesn't appear to be cholera or typhoid. They would have recognised that. The other common infections would be whooping cough. They'd recognise that. Measles. They'd recognise that. Diphtheria, upper airways obstruction with diphtheria. They'd recognise that. The sort of infections that would be more difficult to pick up would be something like tuberculosis. It looks like your great-grandma seemed to be pretty good nick.
Yeah.
So she doesn't sound like she had, consumption. One other thing that probably needs to be considered would be something like syphilis, congenital syphilis. Congenital syphilis is very, very common in this area. I think that's a possibility. I think I've seen congenital syphilis about 2 cases in the last 5 years. It's very, very unusual. I'm not the best expert in that area. I think the best person for you to talk to next would be a sexual health expert.
Really? Okay. Now I'm getting pretty sure that syphilis played a part in it. Of course I'm curious about that. It's more surprising when you've been finding out very family stuff about these people, especially about Ada. In fact, she was this strong, matriarchal, very upright, talented woman who outlived everybody, Again, because I don't know, I'm not a doctor, I don't know if you can have syphilis and live that long. I don't know.
and not show symptoms of it, that maybe you just pass them on to, you pass those symptoms on to children, but why didn't she pass them on to the ones that survived, and how did she live to be 90 odd?